Greetings. Thank you for joining today's Ward 7 Democratic Economic Vision Debate. I'm Orlando Barker, the Public Health Committee Chair of the Marshall Heights Civic Association, and I'll be your MC today. Before we begin with today's debate, I would like to first invite Pastor Andre Ivy of First Baptist Church of Marshall Heights to give our opening prayer. Pastor Ivy. How you doing, Pastor Ivy? Go ahead.
Good morning to everyone. We are thankful to God for this beautiful day that He has created. And so we're going to open in prayer right now. Today is an honor and a privilege to stand with you and for you in this season. Today, our prayer is simple, is that you would use us in ways that we never imagined. Allow us to reimagine life, community, politics, ministry, and living with one another. This pandemic did not catch you off guard, and because of it, we've had to shift, become more flexible, think outside the box, collaborate, and become more creative. Our collective voice is greater than one single voice, so on today, we come as a community asking for you to bless this Ward 7 candidates debate and forum. Thank you for the Civic Association and all that they do to make Marshall Heights a better place for each resident. Thanks to the leadership and their dedication to community building. As we seek your presence and your face today, we ask for blessings that can only come from you on each candidate and their platform. Endow them now with your spirit today and allow them to speak to the community and how they plan to make Ward 7 a thriving place to live and work. Thank you now for each person who will present. We're open to how you plan to operate on today. This election is important because now the pandemic has caused a greater challenge for those with Black and brown skin. We pray for ingenuity, creative ways of doing community work, a way to move us from being a food desert to a place that's filled with milk and honey, as your word says. A place that is no longer plagued with violence, but is filled with peace. And when we see each other on the streets, we're not afraid, but we're able to look at one another in the face and greet each other with a warm greeting. Bless and keep us throughout the debate. And when the debate is over, we pray that each candidate keeps their word and does not allow this debate just to be filled with words and empty promises, but with positive actions will follow. We're standing and believing in your word that we are fearfully and wonderfully made and that we can do all things through you. We thank you once again for the Civic Association, their leadership, commitment, and dedication. It is in the name of Jesus the Christ, and we all say amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you again for joining us today for our Ward 7 Economic Vision Debate. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Orlando Barker of the Marshall Heights Civic Association. Today's debate has been organized by the Marshall Heights Civic Association, and we are an organization where compassion, commitment, and community pride come together. Our members have been working to preserve the rural character and independence of Marshall Heights in Washington, D.C. And the association was originally formed in 1965 and has served the community during various stages of development and growth. Our goal is to serve as a direct conduit to local District of Columbia elected and appointed officials, law enforcement, and emergency first responders to discuss and resolve the issues directly related to our quality of life within the Marshall Heights community. But of course, today is the Ward 7 debate, so we would like to hear not only issues pertaining to Marshall Heights, but also all of Ward 7, and of course, the entire District of Columbia. But please visit marshallheightsdc.org. That's our website. Or you can also follow us on Twitter at Marshall Heights, or at Marshall Heights, and on Facebook at /Marshall Heights. And now for a few words from Derek Ford, Ward 7's Dems chair.
Hey, Orlando, we're gonna make sure that everybody have access to the screen. So let's just pause real quick because I think that some people aren't able to stream.
Okay. We will pause briefly.
Okay, Orlando, go ahead and resume.
All right, thank you, Keith. And by the way, that voice was the voice of Keith Hasan-Towery, our the chair of the Marshall Heights Civic Association, who is our behind the scenes man for today. Okay, so just because I know there are some new people that just joined, I just want to reiterate that thank you for joining the Marshall Heights Ward 7 Democratic Economic Vision Debate. Again, my name is Dr. Orlando Barker, and I'll be the host for today. And so we were about to begin to have a number of speakers come on. So, but before we do that, let me just say that, again, please visit us at our website, marshallheightsdc.org. You can follow us on Twitter at Marshall Heights and follow us on Facebook/Marshall Heights. And today, not only is it the debate today, but today is actually the day we celebrate Marshall Heights Day. But thank you for joining us. And now we want to have a few words from the Ward 7 Dems chair, Derek Ford. So Derek. Hey, how's it going, Derek? All right, thank you for being here. You have the floor.
All right. Well, just want to thank Keith and the Marshall Heights Civic Association for hosting this forum. I like how they concentrate on economic development, because economic development is so important in this ward. And I think we need to hear from the candidates who can best talk about this, especially with the scarce funds that we're going to have. So the next council member is going to have to really negotiate with other council members and have a team approach. By being the chair of the Ward 7 Democrats, we will be also hosting a Zoom meeting on this Wednesday, May 20th at 5 p.m. Once again, May 20th, this Wednesday at 5 p.m. So I'm looking forward to this forum. I really want to hear from the candidates. And I do also live in Marshall Heights. So I just really want to thank Keith and his team for putting this on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you to Derek Ford, the Ward 7 Dems chair. And now, will you please welcome the chair of DC's Democratic Party, Charles Wilson. Hey, Charles, how are you doing?
Hey, sir, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you for being here.
No worries.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, good morning, Ward 2 Democrats. Great to see everybody this morning. For those who I haven't had the opportunity to meet as of yet, again, my name is Charles Wilson. I have the honor of being chair of the DC Democratic State Committee. We are the largest Democratic political organization in the city, designed to engage and empower Democratic voters on issues that impact our daily lives. I want to recognize the work and efforts of the Ward 7 Democrats, in particular the chairman, Mr. Derek Ford, and the entire board of the entire executive committee of the Ward 7 Democrats for the work that they're doing. I know it's a lot of hard work. I used to be chair of the Ward 8 Democrats, so I know the effort they put in on a monthly basis. Also want to recognize the lead organizer for today's forum, the Marshall Heights Civic Association, and all the co-sponsors for coming together to host this event to engage voters on this upcoming election. Now, once we get through this primary on June 2nd, we need everybody, we need all hands on deck to win back the White House in November. Please stay connected with the Ward 7 Democrats and the executive and the state committee, and we will let you know on how you can get involved in helping Joe Biden be the next president of the United States. With that said, enjoy the forum, and I look forward to meeting everybody in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate that. And now we will have a brief election presentation from Alice Miller and Rachel Cole from the DC Board of Election. So can we... Hi, Rachel. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. And greetings, Allison. How's it going?
Hi, should we get started?
Yeah, please.
Okay, cool. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see that? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So good morning. My name is Rachel Cole. I'm the Public Information Officer for the DC Board of Elections. I'm joined by Alice Miller, who is the Executive Director of the board. And we're here just to briefly bring you all up to date on some changes that we have made to the primary election coming up this June 2nd in light of COVID-19 and protective measures that we've taken to keep voters and poll workers alike safe during the upcoming election. So just to review, the primary election day is June 2nd. We also, as you'll see in this presentation, have a Ward 2 special election scheduled for June 16th. When we were looking at how to sort of pivot the primary election when COVID-19 became a much more serious problem than it was in January and February, what we wanted to do was really strike a balance between keeping poll workers and election and voters safe, and also ensuring that every vote is counted. So to that end, we decided to, instead of keeping the 143, this year it would have been 144 precincts open on election day, we decided to do a strong vote by mail campaign, as well as open 20 vote centers throughout the city, which are the same centers that we've used historically as early voting centers prior to election day. Again, we are encouraging that voters use their absentee ballot and mail in their ballots as opposed to using the vote centers. The vote centers are really an option of last resort for voters with disabilities who require accessible voting equipment in order to vote independently. So we are really urging voters to use the absentee ballot process that has been in place for some time. We've been using absentee voting in DC since for the last about 20 years, and we've had no excuse absentee voting since 2010. So we are definitely familiar with this process and have used it historically in the past. So we're definitely comfortable with the process as it stands. The vote centers will be open May 22nd through June 2nd. They'll be open every day from 8:30 until 7 p.m., with the exception of Election Day, when they'll be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And vote centers will be closed on Monday, May 25th, which is Memorial Day. So one of the critical points here is that this is not a vote by mail campaign, meaning that we're not automatically mailing ballots to every registered voter. We've been asked why a number of times, and the answer to that question is that until early March, we believed this would be a normal election. And then as COVID-19 became a more serious problem here in DC and nationally, we made the decision to change directions by closing those 144 precincts and trying to establish a process that would be more consistent with the CDC guidelines for social distancing in order to keep everybody safe. So we are not automatically mailing ballots because in 2.5, 3 months time, we could not fully change our process to an automatic all mail campaign. It's much more complicated than it may sound. We spoke with national partners who use automatic vote by mail and were advised that it can take up to 10 years to perfect that process and a couple of years to put it in place. So given the complexity of our process and the fact that DC has 144 precincts and 35 ballot styles, it was not something that we could get in place quickly enough to ensure that it would make the right ballot show up at the right person's home. So instead, we are relying on a process that we've already practiced and used for a long time, which creates the application process that is incumbent on the voter to request their absentee ballot. But to that end, we've made the application much more available than it may have been in elections past. We have included 2 of the applications in the voter guide that has gone out to every registered voter. If for some reason you did not receive your voter guide, you can visit our website, DCBOE, like for Board of Elections.org. And under elections, the elections tab, which is over on the right of the home screen, you can locate the voter guide there as well. And yes, the vote by mail process is a process that we have always used. It is something that we have practiced and established, and our staff is well trained on processing application forms and turning over ballots quickly. We are processing those applications all day, every day. There are no working hours at this point anymore. And even though our office is closed to the public, the staff is working around the clock to respond to absentee ballot application forms that they receive every day and get ballots mailed out. And it is this process that we've been doing for more than 10 years with no excuse, meaning that nobody's needed a reason to request their absentee ballot. So it's something that we really know how to do well. For those of you wondering how you can request your mail-in ballot, as I mentioned, the voter guide contains 2 applications and a self-addressed postage paid envelope that you can put your application in and send it back to the Board of Elections. If you don't want to go that route, you can visit us online at votefordc.com/apply-instructions-absentee. There you can use our online platform to apply for your absentee ballot. At the end of that process, you'll be prompted to print a piece of paper and sign it. If you have a printer, great, sign it, mail it back to us, or scan it and email it to us at dcabsentee@dcboe.org. If you don't have a printer, it's absolutely fine for you to save that document as a PDF and email it to us unsigned at dcabsentee@dcboe.org. The City Council has temporarily waived the signature requirement on the application form for your absentee ballot so that if you don't have a printer, that's not an obstacle to submitting your application. If you do have a printer, you can feel free to fax it to us at 202-347-2648. can also download the mobile app on your mobile device if you have one. The mobile app is called Vote for DC. There you can complete the entire ballot application process from beginning to end, including signing it with your finger on your mobile device. You can print out a form and mail it to us at 1015 Half Street Southeast, Suite 750. You can also call the board and request an absentee ballot application be mailed to your house. You cannot call and request your absentee ballot. We need that form back. But if you would like to call us at 741-5283, we'll mail you a form to your house. At this time, our offices are closed to the public for safety reasons, to keep our staff healthy and to make sure that we can get everybody's ballots out. So we are not processing in-person requests at this time. Finally, if you don't like any of these options and you just have a old-fashioned piece of paper and a pen, you can write us a letter asking for your absentee ballot. In the letter, please put your name, your registered address, your address where you want the ballot sent if it's different, your party affiliation, and your date of birth. And then please indicate which election you would like an absentee ballot for, whether it's just the primary that's coming up, the general election and the primary, or all elections going forward in the future, basically, if you want to be on our permanent absentee voter list. So any of those are options as well. You can just put that letter in an envelope, mail it to us at 1015 Half Street, and we will send you your absentee ballot. The deadline for requesting absentee ballots is May 26th. That is when we have to have your application in the office. So please send it before then. Send it now. During this presentation even, just quickly navigate to our website, dcboe.org, and fill out your application there. It takes no more than 5 minutes, really. And then as far as early voting goes, if you are somebody who requires accessible equipment and or you would just prefer to vote in person, while we recommend against that, if you do want to vote in person, you can vote at any of the 20 vote centers throughout the city, like our early voting centers in elections past. You don't have to vote at the vote center in your ward or closest to your home address. You can vote at any vote center that is convenient to you at any time throughout the city. We will be using social distancing measures at the vote centers. So if you are going to vote at a vote center, plan on waiting in line because we are only letting 10 people in at a time. We are also recommending that voters stagger alphabetically so that if your last name is A through L, ends with the letters A through L, come in the morning the first day of early voting. If your last name ends in M through Z, please come in the afternoon the first day of early voting, May 22nd. Then we will flip that and rotate it back and forth every day. Details on that are in the voter guide, which has been sent to your home address and is available online as well. We will be requiring that anybody that enters the vote center wear a face covering. We will provide masks for voters and our poll workers. However, you're free to come in with whatever face covering you already have. That's fine too. We will have disinfectant and we'll be wiping down the machines after each use. But that will, of course, take some time. So again, plan on being in line if you are coming to a vote center. And we would still very much encourage you to request your absentee ballot and vote by mail. Just because early voting is starting, or voting, I should say, is starting on May 22nd, doesn't mean it's too late to request your ballot. You still have 4 days to request your absentee ballot. So please do that 4 days from when voting starts. You have more than 10 days right now. So, so please do request your ballot as soon as possible. I think that covers it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you to the DC Board of Election for their presentation. Now for our last speaker before we begin the debate, please welcome Mary Blackford, founder of Market 7. How you doing, Mary?
Hello, can you all hear me?
How you doing, Mary?
Hi.
Hey, okay.
Just wanted to thank you guys so much for including us. My name is Mary Blackford, and I am the founder of Market 7. We are a community marketplace here in Ward 7 that features Black-owned businesses for the purpose of alleviating food and retail deserts here in the ward. Within the next year, we are developing a food hall, a 7,000 square foot food hall that will include a new community grocer and several food stall incubations that represents foods from across the diaspora. We are asking at this time from the community if anyone is interested in leasing a space, has a food business, is interested in learning more about the project, to please reach out to us at info, that is INFO, at market7dc.com. Also, if you are interested in joining our working group, we have a community working group that includes about 70 community residents. We will be having meetings this quarter virtually. So if you are interested at all in joining our working group, again, please reach out to us at info, that is INFO, at market7dc.com. I was so happy to be a part of this process and helping to pick out the questions for the forum. So we are ready to get started. Thank you so very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Okay, now we're about to begin our debate, but right before we begin, we want to go back and do something. Today is Marshall Heights Day, and of course, before the COVID crisis, we were originally going to host this debate at the First Baptist Church of Marshall Heights, and we were, Pastor Andre Ivy had invited us to do this, and we had him do our opening prayer at the beginning. But it seems that a few people, there may have been some mishaps. Some people may not have heard it. So we want to bring him back out for the word. So thank you, Andre, for being pastor, for being out here and being back. And if you can just go ahead and give your opening prayer again. Thank you.
Amen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me good?
Yep, we can hear you great.
All right, let us pray. We're thankful to you, God, for this day that you have created. We'll rejoice and we're going to be glad in it. It's an honor and a privilege to stand with you in this season. Today, our prayer is simple. Use us in ways that we never imagined. Allow us to reimagine life, community, politics, ministry, and living with one another. This pandemic did not catch you off guard, and because of it, we had to shift, become more flexible, think outside the box, collaborate, and become more creative. Our collective voice is greater than one single voice. So on today, we come as a community asking for you to bless this Ward 7 candidates debate. Thank you for the Civic Association and all that they're doing to make Marshall Heights and Ward 7 a better place for each resident. Thank you for their leadership, their dedication to community building. As we seek your presence and your face today, we ask for the blessings that can only come from you on each candidate and their platform. Endow them with your spirit today and allow them to speak for the community and how they plan to make Ward 7 a thriving place to live and work. Thank you now for each person who will present. We're open to how you plan to operate on today. This election is important because now we can see from the pandemic, it has caused a greater challenge for those with Black and brown skin. We pray for ingenuity, creative ways of doing community work, a way to move us from being a food desert to a place that is filled with milk and honey, as it is stated in your word. A place that is no longer plagued with violence, but is filled with peace. And when we see each other on the streets, we're not afraid, but able to look each other in the face and smile and give a warm greeting. Bless and keep us throughout this debate. And when the debate is over, we pray that each candidate keeps their word and does not allow this debate to just be filled with words and empty promises, but positive actions will follow. We're standing and believing in your word that we're fearfully and wonderfully made and that we can do all things through you. We thank you once again for the Civic Association and their support of this community. It's in the name of Jesus the Christ, and we all say amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Okay, now we would like to actually start our debate. So in order to do that, I would like to introduce our moderators for today's debate, Saymah and Victor Horton, who will explain the rules of the debate. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you. So good morning, and we'd like to welcome everybody to the 2020 Ward 7 Economic Vision Debate. My name is Victor Horton, and my co-moderator, who is on mute currently, is Saymah. And today we have an action-packed debate for you, which we have all 6 candidates for the Ward 7 City Council seat. And I have the esteemed pleasure of introducing our candidates this morning in the order that they appear on the June 2nd ballot. To begin with, we have Mr. Calvin Brown, Mr. Anthony Lorenzo Green, Miss Rebecca Morris, Miss Vita Rashid, Mr. Vincent C. Gray, and Mr. James Jennings.
Thanks for that, Victor.
Yeah.
Before we begin, we would like to restate the ground rules for today's debate. Rule number 1, candidates will have 1 minute to respond to questions. The timekeeper will give cues when there are 15 seconds remaining. Microphones will be muted if the candidates go over their allotted time. Rule number 2, candidates will have 30 seconds to respond to other candidates' remarks if their name is invoked by alerting moderators. Rule number 3, we ask that each candidate directly answer each question. We will use our discretion to ask the candidates to clarify or further articulate a position or response to the initial question. If we have to redirect the candidate to the initial question, the candidate will only have 30 seconds to provide their answer. Rule number 4, candidates will have 1 minute for a closing statement. And last but not least, rule number 5, please remember to mute and unmute your mics when you are speaking.
Thanks for that. So questions for today's debate were generated via survey from Ward 7 residents. A panel led by Mary Blackford of Market 7 narrowed the questions down to the ones we'll hear today. Also, we want to send a special thanks to Brandon Scott, chair of the ANC 70 Economic Development Committee, for his assistance also in the question generation.
With that, let's start our debate with our first round of questions. During this round, we will
I think
target.
we're missing a candidate or something.
During this round, we will target the candidate's economic strategy. The first question is, what economic growth opportunities have you led, created, funded, or supported in the last 3 years in Ward 7? We will start with candidate Brown, followed by Commissioner Green, on to candidate Morris, Commissioner Rashid, Councilmember Gray, and to close us out, retired staff Sergeant Jennings. Candidates, please wait to hear your name before you begin to speak.
And Saymah, if we can just hold real quick, because I am trying to make sure we can patch Mr. Brown through. Mr. Brown, if you can text me your username on the via text message so I can make sure I admit you to the room. I don't see you.
Would we like to move on to the next candidate while we patch him through?
Sure.
Is Commissioner Green ready?
Yes, I am. I believe I'm.
Commissioner Green, you're up.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone in Marshall Heights and across Ward 7, because I see that we have a lot of folks from across Ward 7 who are tuning in, trying to make sure that they get all the information they need to make the best choice on June 2nd. I have collaborated with fellow community leaders to negotiate community benefit agreements for over $100 million in developments that prioritize affordable housing and replacement units and residents in Lincoln Heights and registered dwellings, which we call Clay Terrace over here, and hopefully a quality grocery store in Deanwood in far northeast in Ward 7. I have successfully advocated for the redevelopment of the historic Dave Brown Liquors to a medical cannabis dispensary and an urgent care center. The obstacle to that, to double as an urgent care center, is that we need a partner in the council member's office that's actually going to keep their word and bring the funding that they committed to the Deanwood community to ensure that that is an independent urgent care center that many residents can access and get the services they need on our end of the ward, because we know that we do not have a healthcare system in Ward 7, even though we should have had one for many years. But it's a project that I've been very proud of because they have hired 90% of the employees from Deanwood. straight from Deanwood. So these are folks that I grew up with, went to school with, see every day when I walk down to the corner store who are working in this dispensary, and they want to see it successful. And not only that, but it created more economic opportunities for neighbors who have their own businesses. So now they're selling their own clothing lines and products that they've been making out of their homes out of that dispensary right now. So I'm very thankful about that project. And I do know that my work extends beyond just Ward 7. We do have the Martha's Table project in Ward 8, which has been supporting families in Ward 7 for a while now. That started as just a 200 apartment building project. We challenged Horton Brothers to make it bigger so that it can benefit the communities across Ward 7 and 8, and it's doing that today. So I'm very proud of that project as well.
Thank you for that, Green. We're moving on to candidate Morris.
Hi, how you guys doing? I'm actually a Ward 7 business owner, and I'm very innovative and very creative. And one of the businesses I own is a advertising business where I have backpack billboards. And so when we have Howard Homecoming or H Street Day, I actually solicit to all the businesses, not just specifically in Ward 7, throughout DC, to promote these businesses to the national crowd and to different people throughout the country who do not have a standalone store or who can't necessarily be at these parades, but still want their businesses and their presence known. And so I've created this business and actually help other businesses create income or get brand new customers. And I've done that especially for a couple of businesses that are down on U Street. Another thing that I've also created was kind of a fitness initiative called Workout DC. I did it sometime years ago where we lacked gyms in Ward 7. And I actually had a bicycling club where people would pay in and we would bicycle from here all the way down to Haynes Point and then do brunches afterwards. And when people would pay just a few dollars in, but people would be a little bit more fit. And it also stimulate the restaurants that were downtown. So these type of unique business we can have right here. But it just takes innovation and uniqueness and creativity.
Thank you for that, candidate Morris. Moving forward with Commissioner Rashid.
Hi, how are you? One of the things that I successfully helped do was to recruit the Highlands Cafe to the Penn Branch Shopping Center. I met with one of the individuals on the deal, and I successfully advocated them to open up a second location right here in Ward 7 in the Penn Branch Shopping Center. Also, as an advisory neighborhood commissioner, I've worked with the Fletcher Johnson Task Force, as well as lending my legal expertise with the surplus and dispositioning of their property. Those are a few of the things that I've worked on right here in Ward 7.
Thanks for that, Vita. Moving on to Councilmember Gray.
Thank you very much and good morning. Thank you very much for the question. One of the things that I've done is worked extensively on Skyland. Skyland is a project that now is under construction. In fact, we've been successful as well in bringing additional housing. There will be, when it's completed, there will be over 500 units of housing that will be located there. That will bring additional people there as well living in Skyland. In addition to that, we also have done legislation that will add to that. The Skyland, for example, will have a new grocery store that we've been able to attract. Lidl will be coming to Skyland. I also have done legislation that has earmarked 6 sites in Ward 7 to be focused upon. Skyland, Parkside, which is a wide open area that's waiting for development. The Capitol Gateway project, which is still leased to Walmart. Deanwood, which will be home to a grocery store as well. Strand and Penn Branch and East River Park. There are 6 developments that we're working on at this stage. All of them are shovel ready. We've gotten legislation that's been passed. The 6 sites are included in that legislation, and they are focused and targeted now to be able to be development to be developed in the heart of Ward 7. So if we are to develop, which I'm certainly committed to and will continue to work on hard when I get reelected, these 6 sites will be at the heart of continued economic development in Ward 7. East River Park, for example, we work very closely.
Councilmember Gray, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but that is your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We're going to move forward with Staff Sergeant Jennings.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm a former ANC commissioner for Ward 2, Ward 6. I've been a member of the Ward Deanwood community since 2006, and I'm a disabled armed forces veteran, as well as a Metropolitan Police Reserve retired officer, as well as a DC Protective Services Police Sergeant retired. And I'm a FOP chaplain. Also, I want to commemorate the first responders as well as Police Week. There are several changes needs to be done in Ward 7, including leadership, before any real economical development occurs. First of all, making the neighborhood safe where we live and businesses safe. And that's where, if I'm elected, I would like to have a legislation, emergency legislation for a crime initiative to hire our own deputy marshals for our areas, because when the police goes home, when they get off duty, they go to the suburbs where they live at. But Ward 7 needs to have their own protection in place to protect our neighborhoods, our families, and businesses. So therefore, I would like to have legislation, first of all, to address the crime first before real development is considered. We have to make the neighborhood safer, as well as making home ownership, along with making affordable housing opportunities and property taxes, lowering the property taxes assessment in those neighborhoods. In Ward 6, Ward 2, I worked extensively on the Ella Wilson project, 12 years.
Thank you.
Unpaid.
Thank you so much, Candidate Jennings. That is your time. We ask that the rest of the candidates make sure that their mics are muted when they are not speaking. Has Candidate Brown logged in?
If we can maybe just take a pause for a minute so I can try to troubleshoot with the candidate to get him on. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right, it looks like Brown is coming through.
Okay, Saymah, it's your show. It's your show.
All right. Candidate Brown, are you there? I see his name, but I don't hear him.
Let's just continue. I'll troubleshoot with him offline.
All right. Victor, is on to you.
Okay, perfect. So the second question is also about a candidate's economic planning strategy. And so the question, simply put, is describe your economic development vision for Ward 7 in a 60-second pitch. And the order it will be, we'll start with candidate Green, then to candidate Rashid, candidate Gray, candidate Jennings, Brown, and then Morris. And so candidate Green, your pitch. Is anyone else having trouble with his sound?
Can't hear.
I forgot to unmute. My bad. My apologies.
Green was muted.
Yeah, I was muted. My bad.
Okay.
I'm trying to get used to this.
You're fine.
Okay, all right. A number of Ward 7 communities are feeling the pressures of rampant development. Unfortunately, many Black and brown families have not been able to stay and continue to contribute to the greatness of Washington, D.C. Housing costs continue to rise, and 19% of Ward 7 residents believe it will force them to move in the coming years. I'm deeply committed for economic vision that fights to strengthen and expand economic opportunities for Ward 7 residents. That includes uplifting lives of people who already live here, and not just development plans that are seeking to find folks of higher incomes to move here so that we can attract the amenities that we need. We have families that are still fighting to strengthen and expand rent control and other housing protections so that many in our village can stay right here in Ward 7. We have small business owners who are still looking for opportunities in many of the corridors, which requires powerful and resilient ANC commissions, powerful and resilient community leaders that are willing to challenge the PUD process, challenge the mayor's office, particularly Department of Housing and Community Development, about development projects that are pushed our way. And that also includes tapping our legal resources to ensure that we are able and resilient as a community to establish community-led development projects that we believe that we can fight for, that will bring the grocery stores and the economic opportunities for all our businesses throughout Ward 7. And that's what I've been doing right here in Deanwood, trying to make sure that we're fighting our small businesses, fighting for our small businesses like Milk's Barbershop and Little Jules Daycare. We just need a partner in the Ward 7 office that's gonna fight for us as well, instead of partnering with so many developers that are getting, paid off based off their political contributions.
Thanks for that. Commissioner Rashid, your pitch.
Ward 7 looks the same since I've been in high school, and for some that might be okay, but for me and many others, we want more. To live in this ward and hardly have any shopping or dining options is unfair, and as a taxpayer, we deserve more. I'm committed to working with the community, every stakeholder, every community leader, every ANC to build and revitalize Ward 7. And as your Ward 7 council member, I will be committed to investments in the community, the marketplace, and the workforce. That means building a strong community development corporation that builds the community to ensure that affordable housing is in the ward, getting away from CBAs going to individuals, but rather going to the benefit of the community. Also working hard to bring a great streets to Ward 7, similar to what propelled H Street and Congress Heights. I'll also be working strongly to attract strong businesses to the ward by using tax abatements that have really good activities. Also an arts district here in Ward 7. I'll be working with the executive branch. It's very hard to get anything done without working with all of our government agencies, and especially one of the leaders of the District of Columbia.
Thank you, candidate. Councilmember Gray, what would be your pitch?
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to continue to work hard to be able to bring the amenities to Ward 7 that people want. We've been working hard, as I indicated in my previous answer, working hard to be able to bring additional grocery stores to Ward 7. And one of those includes what we've been able to do at Skyland with Lidl, and there are more that we're working on as well. Also to bring the amenities to Ward 7. People want to have a sit-down restaurant. They want to be able to go out to downtown Ward 7 and be able to participate in those kinds of activities. In addition to that, we're also working to be able to bring healthcare, which we know bring jobs. We've worked hard, so it's clear. I hope it's been clear anyway that we've worked very hard to bring healthcare to Ward 7 and to people who live on the east end of the District of Columbia. There has been a commitment to bring a hospital. We have the funding at this stage, and also 2 additional, which we've never had before, never had an urgent care center. So we're bringing those services as well as the housing that will bring people with it as well. We're also working with the Marshall Heights Community Development Organization as well as others to be able to create Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast as a main street in the District of Columbia that will also attract additional amenities for people in the District of Columbia, including restaurants and other services for people. So my pitch would be to sell Ward 7. I think Ward 7 is a wonderful place to be. I've been here for so many years. I'm delighted to be here, and we'll look forward to be able to continue to work with the people of Ward 7 to bring the things that they want.
Thank you so much for that. Next, candidate Jennings. And I think you're already unmuted.
Hi, me? You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. As I say, I'm a former ANC commissioner for Ward 2 and Ward 6. So I saw the economic development in both wards for the unserved. So therefore, what I'm like to present as a candidate, I like to be a stakeholder in this developmental opportunity. That's why I'm challenging all the candidates running to donate 75% of their council salary, be real stakeholders in this, have some skin in the game. And additionally, I'd like to challenge not all candidates running in Ward 7, but all the candidates running throughout the city and make a real difference for our city as one, not separately.
Thank you, candidate Jennings. Is the technology good to go for candidate Brown? I think you're muted, candidate Brown.
Kelvin Brown is here. Thank you for having me, and I thank you for the civic organization for putting on this forum. I'm around the vision for Ward 7. I see Ward 7 being a inclusive place that supports families, supports the entrepreneur spirit of our residents across Ward 7. One that really supports the overall founding principle that if you work hard and lead a good life, you're able to stay in place and you're able to get ahead. I think as a government over the years, we have had the idea all wrong. We're investing in big buildings and investing in big shops and brick and mortar when we should be investing directly in our community. I believe our people across Ward 7, our residents right here, are the necessary assets that we need in order to strengthen our communities, which will allow for economic development to take hold, to become sustainable, and to uplift and make sure Ward 7 progresses as a whole. What that looks like for me is this: investing in our education system to make sure that our youth have equitable access to a quality education, vocational training, and after school programming. Investing in healthcare to make sure that our seniors and others across Ward 7 have access to quality healthcare, not have to go to Maryland or go to Northwest. Investing in other infrastructure needs of our community, like safe roads and streets that are pedestrian friendly, that are clean from debris and litter. Also investing in behavioral health services. So a vision for Ward 7 is one that's inclusive, where everyone within the community has a seat at the decision-making table, and our overall ideas and opinions as a ward and as communities within Ward 7 are valued, they're taken into consideration, and we're all a part of that decision-making process.
Thank you, candidate Brown. And lastly, candidate Morris.
Hi. I've been living here since 2005, and pretty much everything has been the same. One of the main things I would love to promote here is tourism. In order to have have a successful restaurant, in order to have some of these businesses to be successful, we have to have an infrastructure for it. If downtown, the reason why downtown, H Street, all these other places in DC are successful is because they have tourism. They have people coming out of town who's able to shop for it. It's not just local. It's also, we also need government buildings. So we can utilize our hiking trails, biking trails to create a strong tourism program over here where we can have tourists over here and they can utilize the businesses that's over here so that they can be more sustainable. Also in each area, because government is one of our main businesses, in each area where things are depleting, having a government building or having a government building so that when people are getting off work or when people are on their lunch break, they can go and sit down at these restaurants. Having a sit down restaurants in the middle of the hood, it really doesn't do a whole lot. It's going to fail. We've seen that. There's been plenty of sit down restaurants, and because we don't have the infrastructure to uphold it, they fail. So we need to have certain things in place so these things can be successful.
Thank you, candidate.
Thank you, candidates. Before we move forward, if it's okay with you, Victor, I would like for the candidates to restate, if they have already, Their top 3 priorities. I'm not sure if we heard it clearly, so I just want to make sure that we get that across to our audience. So we can go through the list one more time, and the candidates state there are 3 priorities as council member.
That's fine. So let's begin with candidate Green.
Sure. Well, my 3 priorities for economic development and a vision for Ward 7 is, for one, we can't have an economic vision without investing in people in Ward 7. And we have so many people in Ward 7 who've been waiting for too long for all these promises of employment opportunities and certain amenities that are going to bring a pipeline of jobs into our community. So we have to make sure that people are able to stay here. That includes creating displacement-free zones, includes expanding our tenants' rights and ownership to TOPAs and DOPAs and community land trusts. That includes building a workforce system that can effectively train and connect DC residents to DC jobs, and being intentional about creating a pipeline for many of our folks who are suffering from homelessness and may be involved in the sex trade in Ward 7. We have to be intentional in creating a pipeline of jobs for our LGBTQ family members and our trans women who are still trying to get opportunities right here. The only way that we can build an economic vision for Ward 7 is if we uplift the people in Ward 7 and create more opportunities for them to create their own small businesses right here. Because we already know that the power of a good workforce is in the backbone of small businesses throughout Washington, D.C. We have to be intentional in investing in that, diverting money, funding to that, and ensuring that this new budget that we're moving forward in, that the mayor keeps claiming that she wants to be equitable, we actually back that up with action.
Thank you so much, Green. Moving on to Rashid.
My top 3 priorities for economic development are: number 1, building a strong community development organization. This is so that we have someone that builds a community that works with us to bring affordable housing. My second priority is great streets. When we have a great streets, it's similar to 8th Street and Congress Heights. We can propel retail and business. And the third thing that I would like to do is work with the executive branch, other stakeholders and communities to bring a government organization here to serve as an economic hub right here in Ward 7, similar to what they did with the Reed Center on U Street. We have Fletcher Johnson, which is the 4th largest parcel of land. That would be a great site to bring a government agency here. Those are the 3 things that I would like to do.
Thank you, Rashid. Moving on to Gray, your top 3 priorities.
Well, first of all, I think it's imperative that we bring more full-service grocery stores to Ward 7, and the legislation that I've introduced and now been passed by the council does exactly that. It gives us the opportunity to have full-service grocery stores available to people. Also, we have an opportunity, when you look at Skyland, it's a great example of how we're bringing housing, additional housing to Ward 7. For example, I have invested over $100 million, started the process of investing $100 million a year into affordable housing. That has continued, and we need to make sure we continue to do that. And also, let's understand that as we bring a first-class, full-service healthcare system to Ward 7, we're going to bring many jobs with those. Those are jobs that should be for Ward 7 residents. Also, I want to be able to make sure that we are investing in, as we bring more full-service grocery stores to Ward 7, that we do that. And we need to also make sure that we continue to invest in the education of our kids. I'm a big proponent of early childhood education. I created the first universal pre-kindergarten program in the nation in Ward 7. And I'm looking forward to being able to continue that education for our kids as we continue to expand that.
Thank you so much. Moving on to Jennings. Your top 3 priorities. Mr. Jennings, you are muted.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, my top 3 priorities is making the ward safer. That's why I will introduce legislation which will deputize the security officers, SPOs officers, retired police officers, other law enforcement officers that live in the community, as well as ex-military and retired military. I bring them on board, and they be stakeholders in the community, make the communities safer to supplement the police force we already have. Secondly, affordable housing, making public housing give opportunities so they could be homeowners. Secondly, sustaining a hospital and grocery stores in our areas. But foremost, as a candidate running, I'm donating 75% of my council salary, if elected, to be a stakeholder in this whole economical mission. And I challenge the other candidates is the same.
Thank you, Candidate Jennings. To the rest of the candidates, I hope you heard that challenge. Moving on to Kelvin Brown. Are you ready, Kelvin?
I am absolutely ready.
Awesome.
So as council member, my 3 priorities for economic development include the following. 1, we need to make sure we provide assistance in the areas of space, housing, and wraparound supportive services for families and business owners by creating a Ward 7 economic partnership where all of our neighbors that have the entrepreneurial spirit have a means that is and a way that's supported by resources to develop businesses right here in Ward 7 and hire residents right here in Ward 7. Secondly, we must retain and empower our neighbors to thrive in their selected career paths. And that includes including making sure that we have vocational training in our high schools, where our students can actually earn a wage while they're in high school and graduate with not only a high school diploma, but also graduate with an industry certification that makes them employable from day 1 after they graduate. Third thing that we'll be focused on is around developing and identifying new sources of funding to support small business owners, like what I'm doing right now. I'm currently the program manager of a $15 million program that we're testing outside of Charlotte in partnership with Bank of America, with List Charlotte, and with a number of philanthropic and non-philanthropic partners, where we've built a CHO fund that supports small business startup, as well as affordable housing with wraparound services that are specifically for individuals and residents in the Charlotte area that are making between a certain amount of AMI. And I think programs such as this that are that innovative can be brought here to Ward 7 to be replicated that benefit all of our residents across Ward. And so I think the major thing around this is we have to focus.
So Saymah, you're still on mute.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on to candidate Morris. Close us out.
Okay. So my first priority is to bring infrastructure through tourism throughout Ward 7. Without proper tourism or government agencies that's here right in Ward 7, we can't participate. When we have tourism, we can have other small business sell to the tourists here. That's the reason why when you go downtown, people are able to sell $5 lemonade. You can do the same thing here to tourists. Another thing I would love to have is co-op businesses to go along with the tourists that come here. So people who are within our community can be able to have stakehold and be able to own restaurants. Even if you are a person who cannot afford to have your own standalone store, we should have a space for you to be able to sell things in our stores within our community, so you can participate. Another thing I would like to have as far as an economic growth is, am I muted? Economic growth is, I want to create a citywide doula program. So not only women are able to have a trade, but women will also be able to have healthier births right here in the city. And also when it comes to mental health, I would like to create mental health empowerment hubs right here in each neighborhood, so that when we have these viable businesses, we don't see the people who have broken spirits hanging outside of the shops, because we do have businesses here. And another issue is we have just people, mainly sometimes drug addicts, just hanging outside. Policing doesn't really do anything, but having a space where people where people can go in and have drug treatments, and who are schizophrenic, they can also have a space right there.
Thank you so much, candidate Morris. That is your time. So we're going to move on. Within our ward, there are many project sites corridors that are breeding grounds for economic anchors. However, some of these projects are underdeveloped or have been stalled. We have assigned each candidate to a specific site. These sites that were selected for our candidates today include Capitol Gateway, Minnesota Avenue, downtown Ward 7, Skyland, Deanwood, and Fletcher Johnson. Your question is, what is your plan to ensure that this development is completed in a manner that is equitable, healthy, and economically viable to the Ward 7 community? We ask that the candidates please address specific challenges and opportunities at each site. The first site we will discuss will be Capitol Gateway, between Councilmember Gray and candidate Morris.
Well, Capitol Gateway has been included in my legislation that I alluded to earlier as one of the 6 sites that we're targeting to be able to expand the economic development in Ward 7. We're working with as many people as we possibly can to be able to bring a full service grocery store there. We actually had money that was targeted to be able to invest in 6 of those sites, one of which is Capitol Gateway. The money came as a result of legislation that I had spearheaded previously as council chair in order to make these kinds of investments. We had money that came as a result of the audit that was recently completed, $161 plus $1 million that should have been available to move to be able to invest in efforts like Capitol Gateway. We know that we have those dollars available. We can make the investments that are necessary and then continue not only to complete the grocery store projects that we have there, but also to be able to continue to invest in housing. Capitol Gateway is an excellent site. We know that the plan that we have on the table will work. The money was there to be able to do that. Unfortunately, with COVID-19 that has come along, it has potentially worn away the dollars that we had available for that. We'll have to see when this budget is released by the mayor in the days ahead.
Thank you for that, Gray. Morris, your vision for Capitol Gateway.
Don't want another situation. Oh,
you can start.
Here. Okay, I'm sorry. When it comes down to situations for development, I want to make sure all of our I's are dotted. I don't want another situation like Walmart where things are halfway built and then whoever's supposed to develop it quit on us. I want to make sure every single plan is promised to us and everything is thorough to us before we even start any type of construction. As far as that goes, so when things are promised, I would like to see farmers market type of grocery stores in that area, as well as training programs, things for senior citizens, as well as training programs and a few restaurants so that the citizens are able to go to, as well as the people who are in Maryland. We can market over to people who are in Maryland to come over and eat and dine with us.
Thank you for that, candidate Morris. Victor?
Yep. So the next site that we want to discuss is Minnesota Avenue or downtown Ward 7. And the 2 candidates we'd like to speak on that would be Commissioner Green and Councilmember Gray. So we'll start off with Commissioner Green.
Before we start, Rebecca Morris, can you please mute your mic? Thank you.
And now, Commissioner Green, you have the floor.
Thank you. Downtown Ward 7, as everyone knows, is a hub for a lot of possible opportunities. I used to work at the Department of Employment Services from 2013 to 2017 in the Office of Unemployment. So being in that core central part of Ward 7 for those years, you get to interact with so many different Ward 7 residents from many different walks of life. And all of them want the same thing. They want opportunities and they want ability to be able to stay here. So we know that in that corridor, there are chances for us to be intentional in our investment. That means we have to be intentional in the legislation that we move through the council that's going to prop up small business owners, especially from Ward 7, so that they'll be able to sell their products and make a living right here in our communities. I know one of the big topics right now is whether reentry housing is coming to that part of Ward 7, particularly where DC Eagle is. I know there are a lot of folks in our community who are disappointed that DC Eagle was leaving because of the foot traffic that they were bringing to Ward 7, especially at night, which gave us the opportunity of possibly having some type of nightlife in that corridor. But I do know that as long as we are investing in our formerly incarcerated population, and making sure that whatever is coming to that space, whether it's an office building or if it's not a community-led project, then of course it can't be reentry housing without the community being at the table. We have to make sure that many voices in the community are part of that conversation so that we can expand the opportunities that can be there. Department of Employment Services is an attractive institution there in that corridor because it's a government building, so we can build around it, and there have been some opportunities for small business owners on the first floor of that building. We have to expand that throughout the corridor, but we have to push back against some of these relationships that we have with developers.
That is your time.
Next will be Councilmember Gray.
Thank you very much. Downtown Ward 7 does, it creates replete opportunities that we need to take full advantage of, or continue to take full advantage of. We are working with those who own the shopping center, the East River Shopping Center, and that is Cedar Realty. Cedar Realty has some good plans, I think, for that area. They want to put in a new full service grocery store, as well as additional small businesses and amenities there. We can build certainly on the purchase that they've recently made right there on at Senator Realty, Senator Marshall, right there on Minnesota Avenue, to be able to add more businesses, especially small businesses, right there along Minnesota Avenue. We have the library there, which can be built upon, and we have the Marshall Heights Community Development Organization, which has a storied history of supporting economic development right in that corridor of Ward 7. So I would like to see us continue to build upon what we have, to expand what we have, and take the legislation that I have already gotten passed through the council and gotten adopted to be able to build upon that with the 6 sites, including the site, the Cedar Realty site at this stage, the East River Shopping Center, and build upon that to be able to add additional amenities, including restaurants, right there for people to be able to sit down and eat in Ward 7, in that area of Ward 7.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to Skyland with Jennings and Rashid. Jennings, you're up first. Please unmute your mic.
Hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. I like to see more boys clubs developed in those areas, and at-risk organizations to be part of that, to reach out to our teens that's troubled in those areas, and try to strengthen a partnership between these gangs that's committing all this violence in those areas, and having shopping centers, sure, but having other resources there, mental health organizations to reach out to those troubled teens, to lead them, guide them to success, because we have to address these things now and later, because those teens are our future leaders in our communities. So we need to take our time to make sure those resources are there for the teens, the troubled girls, get them off the streets and whatnot. So we need to go forth and have committees and see what ideas we could come up to get some of those homeless teens off the streets and safeguard them, especially our girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Jennings. Candidate Rashid?
Thank you. Skyline is an example of how nothing was done for decades, a bunch of broken promises, and that this current administration, with the support of the community, finally got the deal done. I'm excited to see that Skyline is going up. One of the things that I told you was an economic priority for me was working with every stakeholder in this community, working with the executive branch to get things done. The executive branch got Lytle to come to Skyline. I'm happy that we're finally going to have a quality grocery store right here in Ward 7. So I'm committed to doing those things, working with the community, putting their needs and priorities first, and working with the executive branch and every stakeholder in Ward 7.
Thank you, Commissioner Rashid. The next property would be Deanwood, and we would like to hear from candidate Brown and candidate Jennings. And we will begin with candidate Brown.
Absolutely. So given the state of our economy right now, we have families who lack the safe, affordable housing. Ward 7 has been depleted of jobs. Our educational infrastructure is deteriorating. Our economic achievement across Ward 7 is lackluster. And so when we talk about revitalization or redevelopment, we must make sure that all of our neighbors and residents across Ward 7 are considered and are part of the decision-making process. And for too long, they have not been. It's been a rubber stamp to have a meeting here or meeting there to gain some input that never see the light of day. But as council member, one of the things I want to make sure is that we have two-way communication and we really value our constituent services and our outreach to our community to really understand their needs, their aspirations, and their desires to live in Ward 7 and the District of Columbia. And so for me, Deanwood Metro looks like this. We need a bold, strategic, and innovative approach to redevelopment. And so I would want to create a live, work, play scenario where members of the community have a destination to go to, where they can thrive in place. They can have not just one sit-down restaurant. Why must we have just one? We should have all of the amenities that other cities across the nation have, as I've traveled and seen. We need to make sure that we have an incubator and a hub for learning and for entrepreneur opportunities for small business owners. We need to make sure that anyone that comes to Deanwood Metro Center, Metro Johnson, or any other site, there's a strong CPA in place to make sure.
That is your time, Brown. I believe candidate
Jennings.
Yes, candidate Jennings.
Candidate Jennings, you are muted. You're still muted. You're still muted, sir.
I guess that's maybe come back to him.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I have some of his time?
Someone mute Kelvin Brown, please. So we're going to move on to Fletcher Johnson. Being that Fletcher Johnson is the 4th largest district-owned parcel in the city, I believe Commissioner Rashid touched on it a little bit. With a little over 14 acres of land, we will welcome all candidates to share their vision for Fletcher Johnson. We will start with Councilmember Gray. I do want to restate that we want to hear the specific challenges and how you have planned and what your vision is for Fletcher Johnson. We'll start with Councilmember Gray.
Soon after I got into office, we had a summit where we brought together large numbers of people in Ward 7 to be able to work with us around the future of Fletcher Johnson. There's a challenging topography at Fletcher Johnson that I think can be surmounted, however. We've also talked about the possibility of additional housing, the additional amenities that people have indicated that they want. The task force that we brought together, which is under the leadership of T.N. Tate, and I'm delighted that she has been leading this effort along with others, has focused on how do we bring more housing, how do we bring more amenities to a site that is, as you said, the fourth largest in the District of Columbia. In addition to that, we also have spoken with those who have been a part of the ARC, which is in another part of the east end of the city in Ward 8, and have looked at the possibilities of bringing those opportunities as well, a theater and other amenities to people who live in that area of the city. I believe that we can accomplish that. I believe that we can put together the resources. We've already had a couple of commitments for people wanting to do that. So my vision for Fletcher Johnson would be to bring additional amenities. I would like to bring ultimately a full service grocery store there, and also to bring housing.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Gray. Councilmember Gray, I heard you speak a lot about the resources. Can you give us some specifics of what resources we will be using, or what resources you will use?
Well, I would use the resources that we've used in other parts of the city. For example, DHCD has invested in the ARC. We also have raised money specifically for the ARC. I think we can use the same approaches that we've used there to be able to bring to Fletcher Johnson as well. I've participated in some of the task force meetings that have been held with the folks in the community who are involved with those task forces. So I think we can tap the resources that have been tapped for other areas of the city, like the ARC, and bring those same opportunities to people who want to see the redevelopment of Fletcher Johnson as well. I believe we can also bring healthcare services to Fletcher Johnson as well.
Thank you for that, Gray. Moving on to Jennings. Jennings, you are muted.
Hello?
You're good to go.
Okay. I'd like to see there's a full service educational center that will be in partnership with unemployment services, as well as the area hospitals citywide for healthcare, training, and other resources of training through employment services. Additionally, I'd like to see some type of senior citizen centers there, as well as community centers there for the youth also. So it'd be a partnership with Department of Recreation, Employment Services, and other hospitals citywide who would like to venture with our project, along with opportunities of UDC coming in there and helping the residents get their GEDs or through online GED programs. So that will push our residents forward for the future to qualify for some of these jobs that require to have a GED or high school to enroll in those programs.
Thank you so much, Jennings. Moving on to Green.
Thank you. My vision for Fletcher Johnson is the community's vision, because that's one thing about a lot of our development projects. They are plans that are pushed on the community without really being framed with the community. And I have to really give kudos to the Fletcher Johnson Task Force, particularly to Hasan-Towery and Ebony Rose Thompson, for all their engagement to many corners of Ward 7 to ensure that we get many different voices, that we can assure that Fletcher Johnson is an economic hub that can benefit all of Ward 7. But that requires us to have partners in the Ward 7 Council office and the Mayor's office, because we've witnessed what development projects can be when the mayor is negotiating backdoor deals with the developer along with Councilmember Gray that's up against the community's vision. We saw that play out with Neighborhood Development Project in Deanwood, which is the same developer with Market 7, how they negotiated a deal that did not include the community as part of it. And we saw that they are able to put together a lot of different financing packages, whether we're going through DHCD or DC Housing Finance Agency. We know that we can put the money together to make these projects successful. But when you're rolling out opportunity zones and you're looking at the lines and seeing that Fletcher Johnson isn't included as an opportunity zone, we have to really wake up and realize that maybe there are some lies being told from the executive branch. And I do hear candidates keep popping up the executive branch. But there is a different narrative being presented behind closed doors with the executive branch compared to what's being done in policy. And the fact that Fletcher Johnson is not an opportunity zone has shown that it's not really much a priority. It would be a priority for me, and I do want to see more resources at that site, including for our seniors who want to have a space where they can not only congregate, but create their own, because we
Thank you so much for that, Green. You are muted right now. You can stop talking. So, Councilmember Gray, you were actually mentioned. Would you like to respond?
In fact, we've done everything we can to make sure the community is fully engaged with Fletcher Johnson. We did that with the summit that we conducted, and we've done it in working with the task force. We have now moved the leadership for Fletcher Johnson over to the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development from the Deputy Mayor for Education, where it was for a long time, until we got it moved to the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development's portfolio, which then gives the community an even greater opportunity to be able to have its vision realized, to articulate its vision, have it realized. And I would look forward as a council member, continuing as the council member, to be able to make sure that the work of the task force is effectuated.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. You have been muted. Green, would you like to respond? You have 30 seconds if you would like to respond.
You're muted.
You're
okay,
good?
I'm unmuted. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to respond. I think I speak for a lot of Ward 7 residents where we're tired of hearing the same old thing year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation about what promises are going to be made. But when we look at the black and white, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing Fletcher Johnson being labeled as an opportunity zone so that more investment opportunities can go into that site. That is a lot of land that we can maximize here. We're not seeing actually plans put together where we're elevating the voices of our seasoned citizens so they're able to age in place on that site with housing opportunities. We're not seeing the intentionality for small business opportunities for those who want to open up bed and breakfast, those who want to open up restaurants.
You have been muted, Green. I do want to remind the candidates to please use your time to speak specifically to your plan with the specifics of the challenges and opportunities. I think we all are aware of what's going on and what has been done. What we want to know is how will you specifically map out your plan for these sites, specifically Fletcher Johnson. We're going to move forward with candidate Morris.
I've heard certain projects of what the people had wanted Fletcher Johnson to be. I've heard people want to make it into an art space, an economic space. And those are things that it can be inclusive of both. There's plenty of other things that that because Fletcher Johnson is big and it's huge, it can hold so many things that the community wants for those same ideas. And I would like for people of the community to participate. And if they have a business, they should be able to have their business in there or have a table, or it should serve as a farmer's market style market so that people can not only, use it as somewhat of as a community center, but they've been able to make their purchases and have an opportunity to have fresh fruit from our farmers around the city. And so I really would like to the communities, and I really wanted to make a community space for them to make the opportunity of what they would like it to be, more so than what I would like it to be. So my plan is to listen to what they want and then actualize what the community wants.
Thank you so much for that, Morris. Morris, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds to tell us 3 ways how you would implement this plan. We know what the community wants, and we've heard what you wanted for the Fletcher Johnson site, as well as how will you work with the community. But I'm going to push you a little bit to hear a little further about 3 ways that you will carry out this plan with Fletcher Johnson.
I would work with committees, such as if there's a committee that wants, if people want it to be an art space, then I should be talking to a committee who controls the art, and what to ask them specifically, what kind of art, or should it be a sewing classes, should these things be, and have people in charge of that, to have them bring them on. If we want it to be a storefront, we should be looking at our, since Ward 7 isn't a bid, we do have contracts, people do have contracts with Ward 7. And so we should be having an opportunity to look through those, look through the people who have contracts with us, and to ask them, hey, would you like to have your business set up in here? Or walk into the community, ask them, would you like to have your business in here? So with more so going in and talking to the people, and then also enforcing what they want.
That, Morris, that is your time. Thank you so much for indulging. We are going to go with Rashid. Council Commissioner Rashid, you are next.
I want to thank the Community Task Force for stepping up and taking a leadership role in our community engagement around Fletcher Johnson. This parcel is under DC control. DC will have to make infrastructure investments to prepare the site for development. We also have to look at improving transportation along Benning Road. I would like to see a campus that has government agencies, which would attract amenities, and with that we can attract affordable housing and market rate housing. The parcel is large enough to bring all of these, senior housing as well. I would do this with tax increment funding, also known as TIFs, affordable housing, and other tax incentives. There are many funds we can use to create this style of development. It just takes leadership, and I'm the leader to do that. The Housing Production Trust Fund as well, tax credits. Let's look at what works with the private sector, and let's try to play a supportive role so that necessary investments are made to Fletcher Johnson.
Thank you much, Ms. Rashid. I'm actually going to give you 30 more seconds to hear the 3 ways how you will make these things work. So what we heard was what you want to happen. What we heard was what the community wants to happen. We are aware of that. We know of the RFP that has taken place, and the back and forth that's going on right now. What we want to hear is, how will you implement this plan? 3 ways.
So enacting legislation for creating new economic development is a way, and as I previously stated in my answer, using TIFs, tax increment funding, and affordable housing, other tax incentives such as tax abatements. Also working with every constituent and stakeholder. Everyone plays a role in getting these things done. Also working with the Housing Production Fund. As a council member, you have oversight and accountability, and I think especially with COVID-19, resources are going to be limited. The CFO is currently projecting a $731 million deficit. So we have to be realistic and intentional about what it is we're saying.
Can you tell us your stakeholders that you said you were going to work with? You said you're going to work with all stakeholders. What stakeholders are those? Can you name?
Stakeholders are community members, nonprofit, ANC commissioners, other council members, the executive branch. Everyone plays a role.
Thank you so much. Does your stakeholder list include the task force?
Yes, I've worked with the task force currently. I've helped them to do language to when we had a surplus and disposition hearing.
So you've supported the task force with legislation or resolution?
With resolutions, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. We're gonna move on to Brown. I believe you are the last one. Close us out.
Absolutely. So I'm going to try to answer this question since none of the other candidates actually answered the question. So from an opportunity and challenge standpoint, I think there are a number of challenges. One, we must really take a look at zoning. Right now, Fletcher Johnson is on RA1. We need to make a dedicated inference to whether or not that's the right zoning for all of the things that we've heard from our community, from philanthropic groups, from the Ward 7 community as a whole. 2, we must identify and develop new funding streams from public-private partnerships with nonprofits, with philanthropic groups, with the executive office of the mayor, and with other entities beyond Ward 7 and beyond the District of Columbia. And 3, what I would do, as I've done in my 10 years working in housing finance, is that we have to identify new ways and new partnership with the non-traditional players, such as hospitals as anchor institutions, educational facilities, also organizations such as LIST. So those are ways that I will work as a council member to make sure that we close these opportunity gaps. From a plan standpoint, my plan envisions something that's bold, that's strategic, that's inclusive. That includes restaurants, that includes senior housing, that includes entrepreneur space to develop business ideas, that includes arts centers and art walks, that includes a variety of things that I think can make Fletcher Johnson a cultural destination for Ward 7 residents, but also for residents across the District of Columbia that would also generate economic investment and income.
That is your time, Kelvin. Would anyone like to respond to Kelvin Brown since he addressed all candidates? You can use the raise your hand tool if you would like to. I'll give you 10 seconds. All right.
I'm trying to figure this out.
You can respond, go ahead.
Okay.
Green, respond. I see
Yeah, zoning is not an issue. As many are aware, many of the ANCs have already gone through the whole comprehensive plan, and we have already issued recommendations on how to change certain zonings in certain areas so that we can increase more economic opportunities. We did that right here in Deanwood, and I know that folks over in Marshall Heights have already done it. So a lot of folks already mentioned a plan that's already been put in place by the Fletcher Johnson Task Force, and we have to uplift the work that's already been done by that task force and making sure that we're pushing an agenda with the mayor's office and the council member's office to ensure that we are actually fighting for the things that are going to come to Marshall Heights. And that means that we have to be activists, not just sitting in these rooms making these fake promises. You actually have to go and challenge power.
You're still on mute.
I'm on mute. There we go. I'm unmuted. Thank you for that, Green. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, and it is gone. It's on to you, Victor.
All right, thank you. So that will conclude the economic plan strategy questions. We'll now move on to the COVID-19 recovery question that we have. And as many of us know that our question, as our city is currently battling the COVID-19 pandemic. As our city's health officials rush to contain the spread of the disease, our government is also grappling with the dramatic and unprecedented toll of the pandemic and its effect on businesses. And so the question is simply this: with COVID-19 impacting so many Ward 7 businesses, what will you do to retain and sustain current business? And we're looking for you to be as specific as possible. And we'll go in this order. Candidate Rashid, Candidate Jennings, Candidate Morris, Candidate Brown, Candidate Green, and then Candidate Gray. So Commissioner Rashid, you have the floor.
Specifically, what I would do is offer some type of relief to our small business owners, similar to the payment protection plan, which is under the CARES Act, where people can get grant funding, money that they don't have to pay back, or in the form of a loan through the federal government. I would also support loan relief for up to 6 months to a year to allow businesses to recover and deferring those payments to the end of their loan. Additionally, I will work to try to see what procurement is working within the District of Columbia, what is not, and making sure that we reassessing that and using it in a correct manner.
Thank you so much for your answer. Candidate Jennings, what will you do to retain and sustain businesses in Ward 7?
As Councilman Rashid, Candidate Rashid has stated, I will extend them the same courtesy with the CARES Act as small grants or business loans for those businesses. We must reach out to our businesses to help them as well as help our residents. So I would definitely make some type of subsidies available for those small businesses that struggle now, as well as the citizens that's out of work.
Thank you. Candidate Morris, your plan.
I would encourage businesses to participate in the PPP Act. I don't want to make local promises because our money does come from Congress, and currently under the stimulus packages, we've been highly ignored. So I don't want to make I do not want to make false promises when it comes down to trying to create loan forgiveness, because it's possible that we can't do that because our money comes from federal. But I would encourage businesses to participate in the stimulus packages.
Thank you. And Candidate Brown.
Okay. For me, it's very simple. First, we need to identify which businesses and to the extent of what those impacts are. And then for filling in the gaps and make sure we can retain and sustain, we need to make sure we make all the resources available of the DC government available to those small business owners in the form of micro grants, disaster recovery loans that have low interest rates. Also, we need to look at their supply chain to make sure that there are no supply chain disruptions to goods and services that they need to keep their business going. And then also we need to make sure, as a councilman, I'll make sure that from an education standpoint, we're providing all of our small business owners with the necessary education and resources to make sure that they are able to sustain and thrive here in Ward 7 during the COVID-19 pandemic and after. And that includes business funding through private partnerships, as well as outside of DC government money as well. And I'm a big proponent for making sure that we invest in our community so they can support businesses within our neighborhoods.
Thanks for your response. Next up, Commissioner Green.
Thank you. Ward 7 small business owners have access to many emergency, I'm gonna say many, but a lot of emergency resources right now through the CARES Act, but we know long term with the upcoming budget, we have to do everything possible to make sure that it's equitable. That means that we have to really address our tax structure. We do not have a fair tax structure in this city. The 1% pays less taxes than working class in Washington, D.C. And you hear the mayor saying that she doesn't want to raise taxes. Well, I'm completely different. I want to raise taxes on the 1% so that we can redivert some of the resources to Black and brown communities so that we can create grants and prop up businesses so that they be able to survive and thrive during this pandemic. We know that this is not going to end overnight, and we know it's going to take some time for us to recover in the manner that everyone feels that they're getting a piece of a lot of the successes that's been going on in DC for many years. So we have to be very intentional with our upcoming budget, making sure that it's equitable, making sure that we attack our tax structure so that so many of those resources that are being lost can be rediverted back to the east of the river so we can support our businesses.
Thank you. And rounding us out, Councilmember Gray.
Devote a lot of my efforts making sure that what we have already enacted in the District of Columbia is available to the people of Ward 7. I've introduced and we gotten enacted fully by the council, signed by the mayor, 3 economic development bills that are specific for Ward 7. One actually cuts in half the property taxes for businesses locating in Ward 7. Secondly, we also have a bill that lowers the commercial property tax for such businesses. And then the third bill is what I talked about before, and that is how do we generate additional investment in full service grocery stores as a part of our economic development efforts in Ward 7. So I want to make sure that those efforts are fully implemented and fully used. First of all, our money doesn't come from the federal government. It comes from the taxpayers of the District of Columbia, and we need to be able to use those taxes as judiciously as we possibly can to be able to bring additional opportunities to the people of Ward 7 in particular, and use, frankly, what we're doing there, the legislation we already have, as a model to be able to go forward.
Thanks for your response. Saymah?
Thanks, Victor. This round of questions will focus on DC government and policy. The first question is, how will you work with Mayor Bowser to increase economic revitalization along Ward 7's business corridors? And what additional partners will you collaborate with? This question is for Brown, Gray, and Rashid. We will start with Brown.
Well, first, I think we as a Ward 7 taxpayer and a Ward 7 resident, and currently a candidate for the council, is that we have to develop a relationship, right? Because right now, the way things are shaping out now from a policy and the legislative standpoint, there is no bridge to the mayor's office. And as a result of that, Ward 7 has seen a downturn in the economy, loss of jobs, loss of value infrastructure investments for a number of years. And as a taxpayer, we are ready for change and the clock is up. And so as a council member, I would make sure that there's an amicable working relationship that first starts with a vision for Ward 7 that is inclusive of all the feedback that I've received from all of our neighbors across Ward 7. I don't think this has been done in the past. I want to create a strategic plan that has prioritizations and has actual tactics to get economic investment and development done across Ward 7. I think then we can have a meaningful conversation with the mayor's office because she will see that we are prepared, we're serious, and we have a plan of action that we want to partner on. This will be the first time that this has happened, and I think it's the best line of approach to actually getting the things we need across Ward 7.
Thank you for that. We're going to move on to Gray. To the other candidates, if there is something that you would like to rebut while the other candidate is speaking, please use the raise your hand tool and we'll add you in. Gray, you are up next.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the question. And that is not the first time, what was just proposed is not the first time something like this has happened. It's precisely what has been done as we went through a summit process when I came back to office in Ward 7. We then translated that into a plan, which we've been using as a template for the introduction of our legislation here in Ward 7. In addition to that, our legislation has been put in place, reflects a plan that came from the people in the first place. So I'm prepared to continue to work with those who I worked with before. I meet several months, every few months with the mayor's office and the deputy mayor for planning and economic development to be able to look at the projects that we have afoot, what the progress is that's being made with those efforts, and move forward with those. Skyland is a good example. It was a project that actually I started. We've gotten it to where it is today by people being involved in it. And we're going through an additional zoning process now to get the additional commitments that need to be made to that effort. So I believe we need to move forward with what I've already got going. I look forward to being able to continue in this position as we move into the next term and continue to implement the things that we've already worked on, the things that we've crafted with the people of Ward 7, and those things that they're working with me on.
Thank you so much, Greg. Kelvin, I see your hand is raised. I will go to Kelvin, then I will move on to Rashid. Kelvin, you're up.
You're muted, sir.
Councilmember Gray, we thank you for your lengthy service to the District of Columbia and to Ward 7. However, you've been mayor, you've been chairman of the council, you've been a council member for two terms. And yet across Ward 7, we still lack all of the necessary amenities that we need to age and thrive in place gracefully and successfully. And so while I appreciate your candidness around continuing what you've started, we have nothing to show for those years of service that you have been in office. Now, mind you, there are some good things that you have done, and I applaud you for those. But there's an opportunity for us to really take Ward 7 to the place that it needs to be. And
Thank you, Kelvin. You have been muted. Commissioner Rashid.
Well, we see what happens when you work with the executive branch and we see what happens when you don't. As the council member, I will work with the executive branch to encourage preferential points for our community any project that our community development corporation is involved in. I think this will allow for greater community voice in economic development that is occurring right here in Ward 7. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I think that was my fault. Go ahead.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much, Rashid. I see Green's hand raised.
Yes, I just want to push back against this narrative that we don't have communities that have been trying to work hand in hand with this administration to create community-led development projects. We've been seeing that pop up all over Ward 7. The only problem is we don't have a mayor that believes in community-led projects. It all depends on who's making some type of donation to her campaign or to somebody else's campaign. But we have a lot of community members that have been putting in the work. That's why I'm in full support of a community grocery co-op model, so that we can actually maintain ownership of a resource that we're always going to need, instead of a large retailer that's putting profit over people telling us that we don't make enough money to sustain a grocery store, even though we have so many residents with disposable income that have been sustaining grocery stores for ages. We saw the mayor's office with a commitment when she first came into office saying that she's going to have a deputy mayor for East of the River, and what we saw with that, it was a dog and pony show.
That is your time, Green. Thank you so much. Victor?
Yes, thank you. So in that same vein of DC policy and government questions, specifically want to know what policies will you implement to attract businesses to Ward 7? And this question will go to Jennings, Morris, and Green. So Mr. Jennings, you'll kick us off.
Need to do, first of all, have the plan, first of all, and have all the component finances available for you to apply and find what grants and other banking resources there to buy into your plan. So there's marketing that you have to do, as well as finding the finances resources and other partners to go in with the plan to buy in, and the stakeholders. Whereas I say, I'm a stakeholder, I'm donating 75% of my pay of council member, if elected, to be a stakeholder in this vision. As John Kennedy said, don't ask what your country could do for you and what you could do for your country, and you know, that's my vision there, sir. That's
Okay,
my vision.
All right, thank you for your response. Next up, we will have candidate Morris.
One of the main things that DC thrives off of, our main two economies, is government and it is tourism. And my main, the main legislation that I do agree with that they currently has, if any new development that comes in that's mixed, that something within that that a portion of that building has to go towards the community. So I would like to have more training programs within developments that are built here, but I also would like to have tourism. I would like to have more tourism within our city and create the infrastructure for our city, for our area to have tourism, so that more businesses can actually thrive and actually bring more government buildings over to Ward 7 so that businesses can also thrive as well.
Thank you. And candidate Green.
Thank you. For one, we have to end this business of giving all these big tax giveaways to attract big box businesses to Ward 7. Because what we saw is they end up in these handshake deals that don't bring the development that we need the most. So I am committed to actually trying to restructure our budget to actually make it equitable. That means that we got to reduce some of these tax breaks for big corporations, like raising $100 million by ending wasteful corporate tax loopholes, so that we can redivert the money into expanding existing grant programs and create more for small business owners and local residents who want the opportunity to get into some of these development projects. We have a number of development projects popping up across Ward 7. We know more are coming with so much of development happening in the city that we need a budget that's going to be intentional in propping up local residents to get those opportunities. So that means that we got to restructure our budget. And I'm going to keep saying this over and over again to actually make it equitable. Take away some of these tax breaks and redivert it to east of the road.
Thanks for that response.
Thanks, candidates. For this round of questions, we will target workforce development. The first question is, how do you plan to decrease the high unemployment rate in Ward 7? We will start with Councilmember Gray and then followed by Rashid. Again, candidates, if you would like to refute anything that candidates are saying, please use the raise your hand tool. Councilmember Gray, you're up first.
Are actually being created and expanded. Those jobs need to go to people who are residents of Ward 7. Typically in my legislation where I talk about in the legislation, the expansion of full service grocery stores. It says that 51% of those jobs are to go to people who live in Ward 7. Look at what we're doing. I am developing a real first-class healthcare system for Ward 7 and the east end of the District of Columbia. There is a hospital that's been committed to. I have recreated the funds to be able to build that. When I was mayor, we had $336 million in the budget. It disappeared while I was gone, and now we're back up to $325 million. So I will make sure that we have the training programs in place to be able to prepare our residents for these job opportunities that are now fully locked in place, because we have legislation mandating that it be done, and we'll make sure that those jobs, through my oversight as a council member now, will be able to make sure that those jobs are going to people who are residents of Ward 7, as they should, as embodied in the legislation that I've gotten passed.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Rashid.
As we know, workforce development is an important component of an effective economic development. And to ensure that we have a skilled workforce, we need to start with education. As a mom, as somebody that was educated here, worked their way through law school, I think that we need to build a skilled workforce. How do we do that? First, it starts with education in the schools, making sure that our kids are prepared. That means having a that means having a STEM program, technologies program, making sure that our kids are not only able to complete locally, but also nationally and globally, right? Additionally, I think that we need to build skills and credentials of workers so they can get jobs that are going to pay their families well, and it's also going to benefit and support the community. Also, training workers for particular jobs, like with the Infrastructure Academy, where we have masonry, electricity, plumbing, etc. And certification of job skills, making sure that individuals know that they can show their employer that they're certified and they're able to actually get these jobs done.
Thank you for that, Vita. Jennings, I need you to go on mute. Kelvin, I see your hand.
Yeah, so while everyone talks a great game around workforce development, et cetera, I am currently doing it right now. I have a test pilot that's a $2 million contract as a test program that has 45 students in a vocational training where they're learning construction skills as a pedagogy for their instruction in high school. When they graduate high school, they'll not only receive a high school diploma, but they'll also receive a certification in one of the construction trades, as well as an opportunity to go to a 2-year college. And once they graduate that college, Lawson State, they'll be able to qualify for 0% interest mortgages for homes right outside of Birmingham, Alabama. And so this is innovation where we're bringing together local nonprofits, philanthropic groups, et cetera, to invest in our educational system to make sure our youth.
That is your 30 seconds. Thank you for that. Kelvin, I do want to give you a minute to address the first question that was asked because you were not here. That question is, what economic growth opportunities have you led, created, funded, or supported in the last 3 years in Ward 7?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I've done a lot of programs in my community, in my neighborhood. I partnered with the East Washington Heights Baptist Church to bring programs such as financial literacy, business acumen, and entrepreneurial skills to the community, not once, but several times. Also, we've actually held writing workshops to work on community members' resumes and equip them for the skills that are required to obtain jobs right here in Ward 7 and across the District of Columbia. In addition, right now, my team, we're developing an actual website that identifies job opportunities and matches them with skills that are required for those that we're looking to launch over the next 3 weeks. And so those are innovative ideas that I've been working on, not just this year, but in previous years, that help to equip all of my neighbors across Ward 7 with opportunities to improve their outcomes and give them the opportunities to age in place right here in Ward 7.
Thank you for that, Mr. Brown. Victor, you ready?
Yeah. So, Mr. Brown, you'll get an opportunity to finish your workforce development spiel in this next question. It says, how will you secure sustainable training and permanent job placement opportunities for returning citizens? And before you begin, Mr. Brown, we're actually going to start with Mr. Jennings. You're still muted, sir.
I would work with unemployment services and the stakeholders who are doing the construction projects in DC before they get those contracts to be in the contract. They have to hire returning citizens, give them the opportunity foremost, and do employment search for them with the community outreach programs that we have here now, and some of these facility resources we have in the citywide, such as Goodwill Industries and some other nonprofit organizations, Salvation Army, some of those other ones, Easter Seals. We could partnership with them as well for our returning citizens. But that's a very important part of the rehab for returning citizens, having job opportunities so they won't return to their status of what got them incarcerated in the first place.
Thank you for that. Candidate Brown.
Yes, so for me, returning citizens are members of our community. They want to live in safe, affordable houses. They want to have access to jobs, equitable access to healthcare, et cetera, just like any neighbor across Ward 7. And so as a council member and as a resident, I truly believe that actual reentry starts before release. And so I would like to build a program that partners with the Board of BOP and the Department of Corrections to actually start working with current inmates who are scheduled to be released up to 3 months prior to their release date, to equip them with the necessary skills to identify the changing world that they haven't been a part of while they were incarcerated. That includes working on job skills, resume writing skills, business acumen, working on conflict resolution skills, and other professional skills that are required to be successful in the business world upon reentry. Now, once they're released, I want to make sure that we have support systems that are in place for housing, for transportation, to make sure that they have opportunity to get the right identification, such as now. So those programs, for me, start beyond and before release and will continue after their release, because I think it's an equitable thing to do, it's the right thing to do, and we need to make sure we take care of all of our citizens across Ward 7.
Thanks for your response. So I also, in closing, have the opportunity to state the final question. Many of you have touched on it already. But we know that between Ward 7 and 8, there are only 3 grocery stores for more than 140,000 residents, classifying the areas as food deserts. So the question simply put is, what is your plan to bring healthy grocery stores to Ward 7? And we will begin with Brown, then go to Green, Morris, Rashid, Gray, then Jennings. And so, Candidate Brown?
Absolutely. So for me, if so elected to the DC Council to represent my neighbors across Ward 7, it's that simple. I want to make sure that we look from beyond the walls or the borders of the District of Columbia, beyond the borders of Ward 7, to develop those necessary and integral relationships with public and private institutions that have a vested interest in seeing Ward 7 residents thrive. And what that means is that we need to take this show on the road. We need to go to the National Grocers Conference and talk to grocers. We need to be a part of trade organizations. We need to make sure that we actually receive the feedback from our neighbors around their ideas to improve the overall health and wellness of our community. And I think health and wellness goes beyond having a grocery store. We need to make sure we have nutritional equity across Ward 7. We need to make sure that we're educating our residents around food sources and options. But specifically to the question, I want to develop new innovative streams of financing. I want to work with public-private partnerships to develop partnerships that will improve and help to cultivate for the building of a new grocery stores. And thirdly, I want to make sure that community input is a part of that process at every step of the way.
Thank you for that response. Commissioner Green, your response?
Thank you, and thank you for this very important question. And I'm happy to say I touched on this a little earlier about the need to get away from this model of large retailers telling us what's good for our community, that we cannot sustain a grocery store, and get into a model where we actually have ownership of a resource that we're always going to need. That's why I'm in full support of the community grocery co-op model. And we already have a group in Ward 7 and 8 that's been organizing around this for the last couple of years, trying to get more members, more input, and more investment from the city so that we can always maintain a grocery store that we can walk to, make sure that the prices are still low, and make sure that the food quality is at a level that we can all accept, instead of what we've been getting from Safeway. And we've seen a lot of photo ops with Safeway, but we all know that for those of us that grew up here, Safeway has been a poor partner for our communities over here in the greater Deanwood area, and also over there near Hillcrest and Penn Branch. So I'm in support of a community co-op model, and I'm going to push for further investment in that and support our community members in Ward 7 and 8 who are already organizing around it, so that we can have a grocery store that we own, build equity in, and create a pipeline of jobs for community members.
Thanks for the response. Candidate Morris?
I'm in full support of co-op style grocery stores where we can go. We have plenty of farms that surrounds the DC area. Many times these farmers come into our city and participate in our farmers markets. There's absolutely no excuse or no reason why we can't use these same farmers and have an infrastructure for them to sell to us within each of our communities. It doesn't take millions and millions of dollars to have this. We can have this at a smaller scale in each neighborhood. So I'm in full support of co-op so that the community owns it, but also having the access to fresh foods, fresh meat from people within our surrounding areas. And also DC has community gardens as well as children who have their own gardens with the schools. They can also sell their fruits and vegetables to the city. So I'm in full support of having a citywide community supported grocery store, more so than large name grocery stores.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Rashid, your response?
I would love to see one go to East Capitol, but the city needs to buy out the current lease from Walmart to make that happen. We need to put up investments just like we did in Skyline to make the deal happen. If we can attract government agencies over to that parcel, it will make more sense. It will save money of existing and expensive leases. It will spur economic development, something that I've been talking about, using government agencies to serve as economic hubs. And it will make it more attractive for a grocer to come to that location. I also think it's an opportunity for us to maximize the grocery legislation east of the river. Additionally, I would like to encourage all of my neighbors to take the census, because when we talk about economic development, that is what developers, that's what individuals look to when they're going to bring development to our ward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Gray, your response?
Green or gray?
To bring,
Gray.
Oh, great. Okay.
oh, I thought you said gray. You just say me, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that right, Commissioner Horton?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the question. And I think we need to implement the legislation that we have before us. I've put in place legislation that lowers the property taxes for people who are involved in the grocery business. It places a requirement on those who do these things to hire 51% of the people who work in those grocery stores have to be people who live in Ward 7. And it also requires the District of Columbia to invest in the construction of these buildings in the first place. The other thing that we need to do is to recognize that whatever construction we engage in, we have things called project labor agreements that are available. The building trades work strongly in the District of Columbia. It's been mentioned earlier that we need more jobs like that. I agree with that. I have invested heavily in project labor agreements to help build the ballpark, to help build a new soccer stadium, to help do other things that create real jobs for people who live in the District of Columbia, who live in Ward 7. You know, from my perspective, and I appreciate these conversations today, but this was not an exercise in theoretical constructs. This was an exercise in being able to talk about what we would do to improve some of these economic outcomes for the people of Ward 7. This is not Charlotte, North Carolina. This is not Birmingham, Alabama. This is Washington, D.C. that has a very vibrant future.
And that is your time.
All right. I see 2 hands raised, and I think I saw Commissioner Green's hand raised first. So I'll allow him the opportunity to say something.
Do we want to address Jennings first, since he's the last, and let them?
Okay. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So, Commissioner Jennings, your answer to the question.
Yes, I agree that we should have a co-op grocery stores in Ward 7, just like any other ward. And, you know, legislation should be far most important at the council as well as executive level in our government. And government involvement is very important, as candidate Rashid stated. So whereas a partnership would be better, it will offset the expenses of having the co-op in that facility. And
Thanks for that.
having workers from Ward 7 employed. I agree with Councilmember Gray on that, as well as the other candidates. We have to have, you know, standby legislation that state must hire residents of the ward, because oftentimes that's overlooked as far as employment opportunity for returning citizens as well as others who apply. So we need something enforced that's on record, that who's monitoring those contractors, whatnot, when they get these contractors hiring DC residents for these retail stores, that we give them excessive tax write-offs to come operate in our cities. That's all I have to say.
Thanks for your response. And so I want to give Commissioner Green the opportunity to speak if he wanted to.
Sure.
Yes.
We have people speaking of project labor agreements while having a record of pushing non-unionized grocery stores in this city with horrible labor practices like Walmart. And we also have folks who are trying to talk about PLAs when we have a hospital that we've been negotiating where there's no union protections, no labor protections for the workers, the health workers at United Medical Center, who get blamed for the lack of investment for years at that hospital, but not celebrated for all the work they do in trying to protect our community, like myself. Saved my life last fall when I caught pneumonia and was in there for a whole week. So we have to make sure, as someone is a union brother like myself, comes from a union family, I take offense when people try to use that narrative when we watch what they do, when they get into office and govern and lead as Democrats who really are Republicans and turncoats.
Okay. I also see Mr. Brown's hand up, 30 seconds to speak.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. So my thing about it is this. When I talk about projects that are happening throughout the country, I'm talking about best practice and how we can innovate as a city and as a ward. That's what we've been lacking for the last 10, 15, 20 years is innovation. And one thing that I do know is this. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's what we've been getting for the last 10 to 15 years. And so we need a leader on the council who is not afraid to go big steps to address the economic situation that we're currently in as a ward. We need to make sure that we are funding and looking for additional opportunities to acquire additional new sources of funding.
Councilmember Gray, Commissioner Green did mention you. Would you like to respond?
I'm not sure what there is to respond to. No.
Okay. Thank you for that.
No response needed.
All right. So that was our last questions for the candidates. And now we will hear from their closing remarks. And we'll start with Mr. Kelvin Brown.
Yes, my name is Kelvin Brown, and I'm a candidate for the Ward 7 council member seat. I've served my country in the military for a number of years and have received meritorious decorations for my service. I've taught as a high school teacher, and I understand the necessity and the value of education and what it means to not only our youth, but also to all of our community. I've been working in housing for the last nearly 10 years, working on innovative projects across the country and here in Ward 7 with purpose-built communities such as Parkside to make sure that we have all of our neighbors have access to quality, affordable, sustainable housing that's safe and allows them to age in place. I think Ward 7 deserves a council member who ensures that their ideas, their opinions matter, and that all of our community is a part of the decision-making process. We are tired of the rhetoric around what I've done and what I've done over the last 20 years. Show me what you can do today. And I think that starts with innovation. I think that starts with having a strategy and a plan that's inclusive of all of our visions across Ward 7. As taxpayers, we deserve it. As residents, we deserve it. And as your next council member, I'll be sure to get it for you. Thank you very much. And please follow me on all social media. VoteKelvinBrown.com and www.votekelvinbrown.com is my website. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to serving you as your next council member. Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Mr. Brown. Next up is Commissioner Green. Your closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Marshall Heights Civic Association, Ward 7 Democrats, and everyone that's been a partner on this forum this morning, this afternoon, on a good sunny Saturday where we know a lot of our neighbors are going to have a difficult time trying to social distance, but I want y'all to try to encourage your cousins, your neighbors, your friends, everybody to, try to look out for each other and protect each other. My name is Anthony Lorenzo Green. I'm a third-generation Washingtonian, grew up right here in Ward 7 in Deanwood community, went to H.D. Woodson, currently serve on the H.D. Woodson STEM Academy Advisory Board, and I'm a fighter, a working class fighter for everybody in Ward 7 to ensure that we all rise together to make sure that we have policies and make sure we have a progressive budget and tax structure that's going to benefit and uplift the lives of Ward 7 residents. I'm a believer that we have to be intentional in how we invest in people and making sure that we're not catering to developers that have been pushing us to the wayside and following the leadership of politicians that haven't been catering to us the way that we need. That's why I'm pushing a bold agenda so that we can address public safety as a public health crisis that it is. Making sure that we have community grocery stores that are owned by the community. Making sure that we have equitable development that's community led, and making sure that part of my reputation is fighting for a police force that's accountable and making sure that we have people who speak their truth are heard in the Wilson building. So I urge for your support. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the Washington Teachers Union, the DC Labor Council, ATU Local 689, the Working Families Party, Black Lives Matter DC, 1199 SEIU, and the list goes on, 350 DC. We have a large conglomerate of folks who are supporting this candidacy, and I look forward to have your vote on June 2nd. Green for Ward 7. Let's get these gray clouds out the way, and let's look for a brighter future, a greener future for all of us. Thank you. Follow me on social media, Green for Ward 7, greenward7.com.
Thanks. Next up would be Ms. Morris.
I'm Rebecca Morris. I've been a resident of Ward 7 since childhood. And far too long, we've been seeing our community ignored. we've complained about the same things for the last 15, close to 20 years. Some of the very things that we're complaining about has been an issue since before I was born. And one of the things that as a working class citizen, I want to address is making sure that we have the infrastructure so that businesses can be successful in our city. Far too long, we had zero opportunity to participate in the infrastructure that all these other wards have. That's something I want to bring over here, as well as have you participate in it. So if you would like to vote for me, I'm Rebecca Morris, 3rd on the ballot. But you can reach me at RebeccaMorrisWard7.com. Bye.
Thanks. Next up is Commissioner Rashid.
My name is Vita Rashid. I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 7. I grew up right here in River Terrace. I went to River Terrace, Roper, and Eastern. I'm an attorney. I come out of the Attorney General's office in the community engagement, and I currently serve as an advisory neighborhood commissioner serving Benning Ridge and parts of Marshall Heights. I had the great opportunity of serving as a mayoral appointee to the Commission on African American Affairs, where I dealt with legislation affecting African American community. And I've also chaired the Ward 7 Young Dems. I've been a paid parent and a Ward 7 parent for my school, DC. Ward 7 has been stagnant for far too long. It is time for us to bring changes. One of the things that I'm committed to doing is bringing constituent services back to the board. We have 23 unique communities here in Ward 7, each one with a different issue and concern. I am committed to bringing, if elected, I'm committed to bringing a constituent services office to the board that's staffed by Ward 7 individuals that knows the issues of Ward 7. I'm also focused on bringing economic development here. I don't think that we should be able to get a can of beer here and not a piece of fruit. One of the things that I'm wanting to do is use our government agencies to serve as economic hubs. Senior services is very important to me. When my grandmother purchased her home in River Terrace, she only paid $12,000 for it. It's important that the seniors that are the fabric of our community are able to stay here and age in place. I'm committed to working with every stakeholder, every colleague on the council, and even the executive branch. I'm asking you for your support today as your next Ward 7 council member. Please vote for me, number 4 on the ballot, Vita Rashid. To learn more about me, you can visit my website at vitarashid.com or on Instagram or Facebook at Vote for Vita. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Gray.
Heights for bringing us together today to talk about the issues that are so important to the people of Ward 7. I am delighted to be able to have the opportunity to continue to serve the people of Ward 7. I am a native Washingtonian. I'm a graduate of the public schools of the District of Columbia, and I went to George Washington University thereafter, and have served my entire life in the District of Columbia, and I look forward to being able to continue to be of service. I ask you for your vote, Ward 7. I have been endorsed by 15 different organizations, and I invite you to go through the list. They'll be printed out now, and I will make sure that that's available to anybody that wants to see that litany of organizations as well. I look forward to continuing to work with the people of Ward 7 to be able to continue to craft and work on the solutions that we put in place. The work that we've already done to be able to catalyze and have in place policies that will bring full service grocery stores to the District of Columbia, to bring a full service healthcare system for the first time in history to the Ward 7 of the District of Columbia. I look forward to being able to make that happen. I look forward also to continuing to grow our education system. I am the architect and have no qualms, no reservations in saying the architect of the only existing universal pre-kindergarten program in America at this stage. And we want to see that expanded so that our kids will have the kind of education that will prepare them for the jobs that they're going to need in the future. This is how we're going to get through COVID, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be able to continue to prepare our kids, make them ready, and know that they've got advocates like me serving in elected positions to be able to help them get the jobs and be able to move to the next step that they need to move to.
Thank you, Council Member. And I'll hand it back to Saymah.
I don't think Jennings closed out.
excuse me, Mr. Jennings.
We're looking for change in Ward 7. I'm a native South Carolinian. I'm a son of a DC Eastern Star. I'm a DC Armed Forces veteran. We need change, Ward 7. Vote for me June 2nd. I have your heart and mind. I'm challenging all the candidates to donate 75% of their council salary to be real stakeholders in your future. Vote for Jennings, Ward 7. June.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jennings. And now I'll hand it to Saymah.
Thanks, Victor. So this concludes our debate. This debate would not be possible without our many partners. We thank you for your generosity. We would also like to thank the members of the Ward 7 community for attending this event, especially virtually, and submitting your questions. And of course, special thanks to our candidates for your time and commitment to Ward 7. Ward 7, please stay safe. And now back to you, Orlando.
Power to the people.
Oh yeah, power to the people.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you, Victor. Thank you, Saymah. Thank you for the candidates for this just riveting debate. It was very informative. Hopefully, all the viewers have learned a lot of information, help you decide on who you want to vote for. But again, thank you everyone for participating. So in order to conclude, I would like to first give out a few acknowledgements before we end for today. So I would like to first thank you to all the members and residents of Marshall Heights and the members of the Marshall Heights Civic Association. Thank you to the East of the River Magazine, Ward 7 and Ward 7 Democrats for helping to organize this event. The Marshall Heights Community Development Organization and First Baptist Church of Marshall Heights for their continued support. Thank you to Mary Blackford for of Market 7 for leading the charge of reviewing questions submitted in advance to the Ward 7 community. Brandon Scott of ANC 7E's Economic Development Committee. Our moderators, Saymah and Victor. Also Earl Williams, the president of the Federation of Citizens Association of the District of Columbia, for serving as the question review panel. Also, thank you to the Greater Washington Urban League's Thursday Network of Young Professionals, the Metro DC chapter of National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Black Swan Academy, and the Randall Heights Civic Association, along with the Deanwood and Ward 7 Yahoo listservs for advertising this debate. Thank you to the DC Board of Elections for taking the time today to share more information about the voting process for the upcoming election. And to all others that have shared, retweeted, and liked our postings, thank you. And stay tuned after the debate for a video from the Washington Literacy Center and their executive director, Jimmy Williams, thanking all of our frontline workers for providing some additional resources to the Ward 7 community, especially during this COVID crisis. I'd also like to personally thank Keith Hasan-Towery for being the engine for making this debate possible. Again, he is the chair of the Marshall Heights Civic Association. And thanks to all of you for watching. We appreciate it. Please remember to visit marshallheightsdc.org, our website, for events and meetings sponsored by the Marshall Heights Civic Association. And follow us on Twitter at Marshall Heights and on Facebook at /Marshall Heights. Enjoy the rest of your Marshall Heights day. Take care.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Williams, President and CEO of the Washington Literacy Center. As students and recipients of our services, we want you to know that we are here for you. Our instructors have been in contact with you over the past few weeks to check on your health and well-being and to make sure you have the tools you need. And over the next few weeks, we will continue to do so. We want to make sure you know we are here for you.
Again, thank you everybody for attending today. We have such a dynamic board. I just want to thank Saymah. I want to thank Orlando Barker and Victor Horton. You guys just rock. Thank you guys. Stay tuned to see if we will be having a meeting in June for the Marshall Heights Civic Association. Until then, take care. Bye.